Hi, everybody. It is Lee Milteer. I'm the coach for the Millionaire Smarts program. Today, we're going to do something we have never done before. We're going to do a current problem fix situation. And I have got with me today someone you should really pay attention to, James Butler. And his new book is called Clear and Present Game Changers: Strategies to Turn Around and Transform Your Business. And in chapter 13 in this brand new book that is just coming out, he is talking about how to deal with the coronavirus for businesses. So if you don't know him, I'm going to give you a real brief introduction to him. He's a serial entrepreneur. I've known him for many years. He was in my coaching program, so I adore him. He has built 4 companies, from the startup phase to over $1 million in revenue. He's the author of 18 books. He grew his first bridal shop store from 0 to $1 million in sales in 3 years, and then another retail business from 0 to over $1 million in 18 months. He has helped some of the most respected and largest retailers and businesses around the world to grow their sales and shatter sales records. He is really known as the system guy. He's a celebrated system and marketing authority, and he speaks to people all over the world and help them. And one of the favorite books that he's written for me is called The System is the Secret. And if you don't have that book, that would be something to add to your arsenal at this time. And so the first thing I'm really going to do now is welcome you, James.
Thank you, Lee. It's great to be here. Hope we can share
It
some
is great to
helpful
be
things
here.
with people and help them overcome some of the stress and worry that comes with the situation that's going on right now.
Yes, and so that's exactly what we want to do. And I think it's very important for business people and entrepreneurs to think about exactly what's going on. And so the coronavirus crisis is, the response is happening quickly. It's a crisis situation. It's affecting everyone in the entire world. No one in our lifetime has experienced this. So I want you to give us a background. What is your background? Because it's not just a business owner. You actually have a scientific background.
Yeah, I have a degree in microbiology and chemistry from when I was in college. And so I studied virology actually in school. And coronaviruses are actually just viruses that cause the flu. This particular one, COVID-19, is kind of more concerning because basically the infectious rate is a little bit faster, and also just the effect it can have on people with breathing and things like that can be much more dangerous. And so I think the reaction, the response that's kind of been going on around the world where people are sequestered in their homes has caused a lot of anxiety, kind of shut down one of our fastest growing economies that we've ever had for a long period of time, and everything's kind of come to a halt and a halt and a standstill. And so people are kind of worried about what to do. They're thinking about their business, what's happening, where they're going to go from there. And really what we want to kind of talk about today is not science to bore you, but how to help you through this difficult time to know what to do to grow your business in. Because I think a lot of times in catastrophe crisis situations, the best entrepreneurs, they can grow from that. They can learn and excel and learn new skills, sometimes pivot their business to something different. So we want to talk a little bit about that today and help you to be able to succeed in this time of crisis.
So when people are suddenly home, and entrepreneurs are not really always home, you might work from home, but you're not, then dead in the water with not clear what to do. Give us, just talk to us, James. What do you think about what people should do and how they should view this, and how can we make lemonade out of this?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the biggest thing, people are stressed out right now and they're worried. They're not really sure. Like you said, we've never really experienced anything quite like this before that's affected the entire globe at the same time, where businesses are in some cases, being forced to close for time. You can have gatherings for very much people. It's really affected the speaker industry. Events are being canceled left and right. Some people are just home and don't have anything really to do right now for their work. And so that's kind of I think the first thing is just to recognize what a unique time this is to grow skills, develop yourself, be better. And so my first recommendation would be just to establish a daily quarantine routine. If you are inside and you have to be inside, the thing is you're not just there by yourself. You're there with your wife and your kids, and you're all getting close together, I guess. And so look for ways to kind of integrate and incorporate some of those things into your life to make this a great situation. So I think that just kind of having a regular routine, sometimes when we're immediately put into something we weren't expecting, it can be easy to fall out of our routines and not have a good process going forward. And so my recommendation would be to sit down and figure out your own routine. And I'll give you a couple of ideas of things you could do. One, I think it's a good idea to have a workout time each day where you can kind of relieve stress and kind of get over some of the worries that you have there. Whatever that is for you, it could be inside, because sometimes you can't go outside, sometimes you can, but just whatever will work best for you. I think also when you get up in the morning, it's good to shower and dress, even though you don't have to go anywhere, because I have found that you can easily waste time, but if you know you have to be at a place to work on something, it helps you kind of help with that. My youngest son, Miles, he and my wife are spending time each day cooking together, which is fun for him to learn more about that, which is great. I think you could take this time to develop a new product. You could learn from other people what they're doing, develop better friendships with people virtually, I think, and even with your neighbors and your community, you can develop better relationships with that. But one of the things I'm doing during this time that's been helpful for me is, and I've just finished obviously writing this new book, but I'm working on developing new skills for myself. So you might, maybe for you, it might be learning how to do a podcast or writing a book or doing something like that. I'm personally learning how to do better graphic design skills. I've hired a lot of graphic designers over the years, and I'm learning how to do that right now. So every day I spend some time working on that. I'm also learning how to be a web designer because I've never done that before. And that could be a skill. I've built a lot of websites. I've paid a lot of web designers a lot of money over the years, but to learn how to do that myself and learning some of that from my son. And then also just learning on my YouTube videos and things like that too. But just learn how to develop the skills. I think you don't want to look back on this time and think, man, I should have developed more skills. You don't look back with regret. I think you really want to look at things and say, what could I do to improve myself during this time? So I would encourage you to read. One of my friends, Mike Walter, says, this is the time to turn pages, not turn channels. And I love that. I think that this is a great chance for us to share and read. I've just finished reading a biography. I've got a couple books I'm reading right now, but it's just a great time to learn and develop yourself. So don't be a couch potato during this time. I think Netflix's stock is going up because everybody's watching Netflix, but what you should do is put stock in yourself and increase your own value because of the skills that you're developing and putting together. So that might be a suggestion to write more, put some time into doing that. Maybe it's organizing your home. My wife and I have set a goal that we're going to organize one room in the house each day. So we work for maybe a half hour, an hour on that. And that's helped, that's great because we can go around and see something we've worked on together and it's fun for us. And sometimes that might, that honey to-do list you've had for a long time, so maybe a time to start working on some of that. But I think that in the midst of all this chaos that's going on, just stay positive. I think it's important to be informed, but you don't want to watch the news all the time or just scroll endlessly through social media. I think that's an easy way for you to get really depressed and discouraged pretty fast. And so don't let the panic of other people influence you. That's probably the most important advice I could give to you at this time, is to focus on your priorities, not the priorities of other people. What is it that you want to work on? A lot of people are working from home. I'm working from home right now and spending my work hours doing just like a regular time. I'm just working on other projects and making phone calls and talking to customers and clients just like always. So I think that's important to not lose your routine just because you're doing something different. John Maxwell says always that the secret to your future success is hidden in your daily routine. And I don't think there's a time that's truer than that than right now, or because you are the one who can schedule that. You don't have a boss looking over your shoulder seeing what you're doing, but you can use that time to develop yourself and improve yourself and become better. So I think that's it. There's lots you can do. I've just given you a few examples, a few ideas. Just make a plan and get to it.
I had a friend call me the other day and she said, Lee, how many times I've said to you, I really wanted to organize and clean my house if I just had time. And she said, now I have time. I've realized that really wasn't the excuse.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's true.
Which really made me laugh. So just before I called you, Dan Kennedy called me and I told him we were going to do this. And he said, this is really good. And he said his advice for everybody right now was to work on your business, not in your business if you could. And one of the things that I've written in one of my books a long time ago, and I can't remember exactly the quote, but it's like when there's storms, fishermen don't just sit around doing nothing. They mend their nets. And so they're doing things to prepare. I know in my company, one of the things we're doing is we're creating a new product. We are also reaching out to all of our existing people and saying, how can I help you? What can I do? It's no charge. What can I do to make things better? And that's really what this is, what you and I are doing,
Right.
is that we're reaching out. This wasn't scheduled. We just decided to do this on a whim, and to really help people feel better about themselves. In our lifetime, nothing like this has ever happened. And fear is, fantasized experiences appearing real. And and I believe that fear is contagious, that if you are with someone who's very fearful, before you know it, your subconscious mind will adapt that, and suddenly you're fearful and you're thinking about what's going to happen, what's going to happen. And everybody should write this phrase down. No one can see around the corner. No one can see around the corner. I don't care what the news people are saying. I don't care what the government is saying. Nobody can see around the corner. So our job is, if we can control the present and be calm, and that's when we make our best decisions. When we make panic decisions, when we are afraid, we make terrible decisions. We're reacting to life versus really acting. The other thing that Dan said that I could share, he said, is, for those who entrepreneurs who really hardly ever take a vacation, have a stay vacation. Plan to enjoy, get to know your kids again, play board games, stay off the TV, read books, everything you were just saying. One of the great things that's happening, because we're looking for, the lemonade here, is families are eating together again.
Yeah, it's true.
Families are actually having to talk to each other. I think this is a time that we can make this horrible, or we can make it very fruitful. It really depends on how we want to look at this. So I've jotted down some questions.
Yep.
So how do you make decisions when things are, say, so chaotic like right now? We've never been in this place before, and it almost seems impossible to take a breath hour to hour, day to day, because if you do watch the news, they will scare you to death.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I remember back when the recession first started. A friend of mine, Mark S.A. Smith, he shared this with me, and I think I've thought about this a lot, even in the midst of this crisis as well. Is that first thing he said was just to stop and take a breath. I think that's really important. You can take 5 minutes out of your day to just breathe in and breathe out slowly, and just kind of recenter yourself. 2, as he said, make a list of what you know about your situation, not about what's happening in the world, but about your situation. Like, for example, you're healthy right now. That's a good thing. Stay inside, be healthy, help other people be healthy. Those are good things. But to ask yourself the question, what resources do you have that you could work on right now? Maybe, because the thing is, you can't be resourceful, like what Lee was talking about, if you're overwhelmed, if you're full of fear. You've got to stop, kind of recenter yourself, get regrounded, and then you can kind of focus on what's really important. And I think that's a really key step as well. And then the third thing that he said, which I thought was really helpful, was to identify your next step. In other words, you don't have to have all the steps. And then, like Lee said, you can't see around the corner anyway. So don't try to figure out the next year what you're going to be doing. Just figure out what you're going to do next. And that's such good advice. I like that. You don't have to have all the steps identified, just the next one. So if you can work on that next step, then you'll be much more successful at implementing and getting something done during this period of time where other people are just running around being fearful and afraid, not doing anything at all. So it's okay to say no to fear. It's okay to say no to being worried. You might have those feelings, but you can move past those by planning and taking action. I think that's a really key point, is the only way you can overcome that fear is to take action. Ralph Waldo Emerson he said that do the thing you fear and the death of fear is certain. And I love that statement. I used to use that a lot when I was learning how to sell, and I was scared to talk to people on the phone. And if you just do the thing you're afraid of, guess what? It goes away. And it's the same thing with this. You're afraid of lots of different kinds of things. A lot of people are afraid right now for a lot of different reasons. They don't want to get loved ones get sick or health or pass away, or all kinds of different things. But you can take the time to focus on you and how you're reacting to this by getting into basically the frame of mind of what you're going to be doing to be more successful and put that together. So that'd just kind of be my first thing I would just say, is just make sure that you're putting forth that effort. The other thing is that just reminded me of is there's a book that I read by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross that she talks about the 5 stages of grief. And I think it's important to understand we're all going through this as a nation, as a country, as a world, all together. First off, we deny that maybe this is really even happening. And now we're all kind of sequestered, and now we've kind of, maybe we're angry about it. We're upset we can't go to work, or we're angry about what's happening to the lost revenues from our business, right? And the third step, she says, is blame. We start blaming people. This is the reason I'm here is because of this or that. And then we can kind of go into a depression where we just get really worn out and wiped out because we're just concerned about what's going on. And then the last step, she says, and this is the most important step, is acceptance. And when you actually say, you know what, this has happened. I can't do anything about it. I didn't have any control over this in the first place. So I'm going to accept it and move on and not let this tie me back to what I need to do. I love what William James said. He said that the acceptance of what has happened is the first step to overcoming the consequences of any misfortune. And I think that's a great statement. If you just accept, okay, we're here in this situation, I'm going to move forward, then you're able to get more done. So I think that's a really important strategy to put that together. Sorry, Lee, I know I've just kind of talked a lot here. I'll let you have some chance to talk here now too.
Okay, so I wrote down, because I always love to take notes when I talk to you. You're like, you remind me of Brian Tracy, who I consider like a walking encyclopedia.
Yeah,
I love Brian.
yeah.
I love that.
Brian, he's awesome. Yeah.
He is. So you were talking about grounding yourself. So I really just want to share with people that I am an empath. If you don't know what that means, is I'm intuitive. I can pick up energy from other people, and a lot of people are empaths and don't even really know it. And I have to literally, James, ground myself because I can feel other people's energy, and when it's fearful or angry, it affects me. And so you know, there's some great things that anybody can do anywhere. It's warm enough right now that you can just go outside in your own yard barefooted, just either sit on the ground or just put barefoot feet on the ground and just sort of imagine your energy field going to the center of the earth and coming back up and just sort of connecting with earth. And I know this is very woo-woo, and I don't care. It works. And so I do have to ground myself. I also take Epsom salt baths because Epsom salt actually will help pull out negativity and you'll feel better. And if you really want a great bath, an Epsom salt bath with a baking soda bath, like 2 cups of each, and just soak for 20 minutes. I did this last night and I slept so much better. I always do it when I'm feeling stressed before I go to bed. And when I travel, you know, you're picking up everybody's energy, the franticness of the world. So I do that. Another thing is if you're a meditator, and by the way, meditation is simply going within, and whether you use guided meditation or however you meditate, what that really does is it stops the self-talk, which the self-talk starts to go in circles of, you know, it's bad, it's getting worse, we're all going to die, you know, that kind of fear stuff. So meditation is very good. The other thing that grounds me is just playing with my animals. I mean, because they're just, you know, 100% love. I mean, that's all that they are, is love. And so playing with your kids, really starting to just connect again with that we're human beings first. We're, most of us are human doers versus human beings. And so I've been known to be a little workaholic in my life. If people who work for me know that. And so I have to remind myself, you know, this is my life. I need not to squander it or waste it being fearful about what's going to happen. And I also ground myself by saying to myself, I have been flat on my back broke before. I will always land on my feet. I will always figure it out, because we as entrepreneurs have that ability. We have been blessed with wiring that, let's just say, that a lot of people don't have. We are the leaders. And you and I have talked before about how important it is that the people around us see us as leaders so we can help ground them.
Right.
So it's very important to ground yourself. And the other thing I wanted to say about acceptance, I feel that there is a gift for us if we look for it. But we have to turn our attention from what we're losing to what we could possibly create and have. And
Great
by
point.
doing that, our focus shifts into gratitude. And when I'm in gratitude, I'm not fearful. So these are just some fun things that I do that to remind you to just, and the other thing, and I 100% agree, for for the love of God, stay off the news. you know, you know, just I don't care who you watch. I believe the news is tainted. I believe that I believe I have been in the media. I know that it has an agenda, that they are trying to scare you to keep your eyeballs and your ears, on them, because that's how they make a living, and their job is to scare you. And so the other thing about the news is I take most of it with a grain of salt, because I don't think that many people are actually telling that much truth, because they just don't know, and they got a lot of airtime to fill. So with that, stay off the news. I agree with you about reading more, and I also agree with you about learning things. The thing that I am dipping my toes in is to learning more about QuickBooks, because I'm tired of being a slave to my bookkeepers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's so many different skills you can learn as a business owner that what gives us an opportunity to grow those skills instead of just being content to, or just I'm going to wait this out till this is done. I think some people are making that choice, and they'll have maybe they'll maybe think, well, I wish I would have done something different during that time, but you can make that choice. It's your life to choose what you get to do with it. It's your reaction to this situation that's important, not what's actually happening.
Yes. So give us some tips on how to stay motivated when you feel so discouraged by loss of revenue and a changing market.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I just been reading Dale Carnegie's book again, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. I picked this book up and started reading at the beginning of this crisis, and I was interested in chapter 3. I hadn't really thought about this in the context before, but he shares a story about basically the people were knocking on the doors and asking, hey, do you need to get this basically they were vaccinating against smallpox. And I just want to read one sentence I thought was really interesting. He said, I've lived in New York City for many, many years, and no one had ever yet rung my doorbell to warn me against the emotional sickness of worry, an illness that during the same time had caused 10,000 times more damage than smallpox. I thought, what an interesting example there, because we're kind of seeing that a lot too. I think the worry and the stress and everything like that's probably causing a lot more damage, even though the coronavirus and COVID-19 is causing damage and people are dying. That's very sad and tragic. But I think the real tragedy is what people are allowing their fear to take into them. And I love there's at the very top of that page when you first start the book or that chapter, he quotes a Nobel Peace Prize author, and this is what he says. And I love this statement because I've thought about this a lot since I read it again. That those who do not know how to fight worry die young. That's Alexis Carrel. Dr. Alexis Carrel said that. So I think that's a really important thing, is just learning how to fight worry, how to fight concern, and put your energy into positive projects and things like that can help you grow and be better than becoming bitter because the situation is not what you wanted it to be.
My grandmother used to have this little saying. It says, worry was like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do and gets you nowhere. And of course, at 16, I thought that was ridiculous. But
Right.
today, uh, I think most people don't actually understand that most of our health is very affected by worry. You actually, when you worry and stress yourself, stress actually reduces your resistance to being healthy. So it's really interesting to think about worry, because you can't worry accurately. You don't have all the information. And so you're making up stories in your mind about how bad things are going to be. And since our body follows the mind and reacts to what we think, and because we're self-fulfilling prophecies, we're really lowering our own resistance. So your health is very affected if you worry too much. I think this is a good time, if you have faith, that you should, be with your faith. Believe that, you're going to be fine, and keep your self-talk clean without allowing yourself to go into that spiral of fear and doubt, and we're going to lose everything and everything is going to be awful. No one knows what's going to happen. but we are in, but what will happen will be determined by the actions and the mindset that we have now. No matter what anybody else does, you as business owners have an opportunity to see new slices of business that you hadn't seen before.
Excellent point. Yeah. I think too, there's just, like we already talked about, just study what you want to learn, put your time and resources into developing yourself. And I love to read biographies. I just finished reading a biography on the life of Kirk Douglas. He just passed away recently at age 103. And I found his life very fascinating. And some of the tragedies that he went through, I didn't realize that he had been taken advantage by as an attorney that he had. And he essentially had worked made 27 movies without getting paid because this guy had taken all this money and put it into other investments. And that was a really shocking story to me. I really wasn't aware of what he had faced, but his wife, who he's married to for 65 years, was kind of suspicious about some things, and he was able to figure that out. And then he ended up making about 95 films in his career, but his life would have been a lot different if they wouldn't have figured that out sooner. And so, but you learn from the tragedies of others and the experiences that they have, and he didn't let that affect his ability to keep going working. For a number of years, he made 3 movies a year to kind of catch up from that. And as a result, he wasn't as home as much probably, but all of he's got 4 sons. All 4 of his sons were in the movie business. And I think that, it's kind of amazing to have lived that long. 100 years is a long time to live. But that's just something I learned just from reading a biography about his life. And so I love reading biographies and learning from those. And I think that's the same thing too. Just take time to study the lives of other people, turn more pages and turn less channels. I think it's a great quote, great advice.
So speaking of the book analogy, this is just a small chapter in our life of our book. And that I have a little saying somewhere in my office. I came that today is the first day I have an opportunity to make a better ending, another chapter, and you really do have that. And I'm very much on board with whatever you have kept saying to yourself, when I have time, this would be it.
Right.
So if you want to write a book, a process I did many years ago, and I never published it because I actually thought I was too young to publish it. There were so many more chapters to come, but I actually wrote my life story. And it was very healing for me to write my life story because of all the ups and downs of my life, the really wonderful things and then the really bad things. And then, when it's very healing to be able to just write out your life. My joke was nobody could read it until after I died. But anyway, at some point, I will do my life story. I've had a wild life, and there's like everybody. So whatever it is that you have been hesitating to do, now is the time to do it. Stop the negative self-talk. Have more fun. Really give yourself permission to really have fun now, because if you don't give yourself permission to have fun now, what are you waiting for?
Great point. Well, I've learned a lot about this from you, Lee. I mean, I remember when I was in peak performance, you told the story about how your first husband was murdered and how you dealt with that. And as I've been through tragedy and loss and different situations in my life, I've thought back on that a lot about how you responded to that situation. And, I think that there's your resilience in the face of such a difficult moment, I think is an inspiring example to me of what it takes to get through difficult times. And like even that situation, you didn't know what you're going to do day to day. Just the grief and the tragedy of that was difficult for you. I know you've told me that before. And I just think that's so important to, like you said, give yourself permission to, if you need to take a break for a little bit, do that. Don't feel like you have to get everything done. I think sometimes you get ideas like from a call like this of stuff you can do, and you can be overwhelmed and feel like, man, I don't know what to do. And don't do that. I mean, just take stock of what you can do, work on a few things every day, but work and work through those difficulties. Don't get caught up in despair or discouragement or depression. Work through those things. That's really important.
So I would also suggest that maybe, with close friends that you have and your own coaches that you work with, that you mastermind and think about, the situation that we're in now where a lot of our physical contact is cut off, but we're now, like you and I, operating on the internet. There's a lot of businesses that are going to literally, once people get used to that, they've now created a habit. So I think you should start asking yourself, how can you incorporate the new reality? And one of the things that I believe, James, is that the old had its place, but that life is about evolving. That life is about always looking for the new thing. And so the question I ask myself when I wake up in the morning is, what is it that Lee Milteer does that is of value that other people want and that would want to use or pay for? And that I vary the question in different ways, but what it does is it actually allows my subconscious mind to start thinking about, where are there hidden opportunities in my existing business that I haven't capitalized on? The other thing that I've been doing that's been very eye-opening is, you and I have attended, hundreds of great events, and we all have in my notebook, a notebook for each event. And usually when we come home, what do we do with the notebook? We file it.
Right.
So I'm going through my notebooks and I'm just looking for something that caught my eye at another time, but I didn't have the bandwidth to go play with. Well, we might not we have the bandwidth now to go play with these new ideas. I don't want to rely on the old way we did things so much. I really want to evolve, and I want to capitalize on change versus being afraid of change. And when you have this kind of attitude of, so we have the past, the present, and the future. The past is a locked door. We can do nothing about it. So however we've done business before, that is officially now in the past. The present is where all your power is, and the future is really your imagination. And so I'm going through my books from different events, and I'm looking at some of my ideas, because I always go, do this or follow up on this in my books, and then, really don't get home and often get to do as much as that. But I'm really now playing in my imagination. I call it the workshop of my mind, the what if game. Well, what if we did play with this? What if we made a product for this, or I wrote a book on that, or I offered an online course? What is it about the current reality that I can capitalize on and, utilize? And, the first to market is always, the good thing. So you got to start asking yourself those questions versus, what is the government going to do? Or, what are other people going to do? The real question is, what can you do to make sure that your future is fun? And I'm actually putting the word fun in my writings of what I want to have more in the future, because most of us entrepreneurs pretty much think about business. If our eyes are open, we're thinking about business. So I've got to add more fun in, because, life truthfully is short. And not only can you not see around the corner, you have no idea when it's time for you to go. So how about not having a time of regret in your life? And so I'm really thinking about that a lot. I want to live my life without regret. And by the way, thank you for the resilience thing about the husband, because one of my favorite songs is "I Don't Scare Easily" by Tom Petty. And I just hear this all the time. I don't scare easily, and I've been using this in social media a little bit. I don't scare easily because I have been to hell and back, like you, and I don't scare easily. I will rise to the occasion. I will be successful. And that is my motto. And that is how you have to think. You can't give yourself permission to go down the pity party path.
Great point. Yeah, I saw Michael Hyatt, he's developed a planner called the Full Focus Planner. But one of the things I saw on social media that he posted as this crisis started was he asked the question, what does this make possible? And I've thought about a lot about that question. It's a great question. What does this make possible now that we're in this situation? And if you take the time to think about that question, that can really open up your mind. And just like what Lee was talking about, the workshop of the mind, you can start thinking about things differently. Instead of saying, why is this happening? To ask yourself, what does this make possible? It's that acceptance of this is the new reality. What am I going to do going forward? And thinking about that. I think that's a really important aspect of life with what you want to put together for that, for sure.
So I know, we decided we were only going to do this a short time, but one of the things that Dan Kennedy said to me today, that his advice for most of his clients was to literally think about nurturing the clients, customers, and patients that you now have, and that you can worry about getting more of those when the crisis is over, but your main job is to try to keep and nurture, your current business. And I think that's important because I know there's a lot of discussion out of, and I don't know if you've seen it on social media, a lot about should we be selling things? And I don't have a problem with people selling things, but I think that they need to be careful with the sensitivity that's happening right now. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that you should be selling things, but I think you should also be offering helpful advice or doing something like this where you can help people calm their nerves and feel assured and kind of return to the faith of the future instead of getting caught up in the fear of the moment. And I don't think there's anything wrong if you have a good offer to make that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with offering the opportunity to share your thoughts and your advice in a forum like this either. I don't think that I think that the rules are kind of being rewritten, I guess, in some ways, but you've got to take care of your business. One of my friends, he mentioned one of the things that he's focusing on, same thing, same concept, to just take care of the customers you already have, let them know that you're committed to them, you're there for them through this. We're all going through this together. None of us is immune from it. I think that's one of the most unique things about this particular crisis is the whole world is going through this together. It's not just like with the recession, the 2008, 2009. It wasn't. This affected certain groups of people, but it affected certain countries more than other countries. But this is affecting the entire world, and so I think, like you said, being empathetic, being understanding is really, really important at this time. But if you have something of value, you don't just stop doing that. I think you need to offer your products and services and be helpful to people. But you can be helpful to people in lots of ways, and I think offering encouragement is really, really important. I've mentioned to you before that I love the statement by Truett Cathy, who's the founder of Chick-fil-A. He said, how do you know if someone needs encouragement or not? And his answer was that person is breathing. And I love that because it's so great that we're all breathing. We all need encouragement. We all need help. We all need to be reminded of what's important and focus on that and not get so caught up in being militant about I need to sell in this time that you can become across as insensitive. That's not the right answer, I think. But I think the opposite extreme of I'm not going to sell at all and just offer free things is the wrong approach too. I think you have to, at some point, we're going to come out of this. And I think what you do in that time, maybe you're developing a new product you're going to sell when we come out of this, it can be helpful to people. But I think that mostly we need to be offering encouragement. We need to be working on ourselves and improving ourselves and helping those who are really scared right now, because there are a lot of people who are really nervous and scared. And I think we can be a calming voice and assurance and be helpful to people in this difficult time, for sure.
I think being a good example is one of the most important things you can be in life. Handling things with confidence and this belief that we're all in this together and that we're going to help each other and love each other, and this too shall pass. I think I'm going to guess you're a history buff to some degree.
Yeah, my wife's a history teacher actually, so I kind of am anyway, but yeah, I definitely have that for sure.
So I like history. So I like history, and so I have known that there have always been times in history where we've been very stressed, and somehow or another we become better because of it. So anyway, I really want to thank you for all your advice. Any closing thoughts? And then I'd like for you to share how people can find you.
Sure. Yeah, I apologize about that. I just had a charley horse in my leg, so I had to stand up for a second. But anyway, I think that I don't know, for final advice, if I have anything, I think maybe one thing that you can do is maybe make a 30, a 60, or 90-day plan. I talk about this a little bit in the book about kind of thinking through the future. And you're going to have to obviously be flexible with that, because in this particular crisis, things are changing hourly and daily. And so what you work on today may not actually be applicable tomorrow. But I think taking the time to stop back and think, I think that's really critical in this time. It's just, where are we heading? Sometimes we get so caught up in putting out fires that we forget to notice that maybe the house is completely burned down and we need to move to a different place, And so, and that may happen, but I think the reality is just focus on a couple things. So one thing I would just say, two items, just two pieces of advice I give. One is to put your intention there, of what you want to work on during this time. A great coach I had once told me that intention is the most important part about setting your goals. So if you have the intention to work out, the night before you need to put out your workout clothes and your socks and your shoes and everything. So when you wake up in the morning, you already have the intention you're going to be going to do that. If you don't have that intention, you probably aren't going to do anything. So that's an important piece of advice, I think, for this, is have the intention to work on a skill or develop something, be better at something. And then the second thing is just to increase your effort in the right things. So you might want to think about, for example, with a product you have, what's the most profitable item that you have in your business right now? And is that going to change, or is that going to be new? Then you can think about your team members that you have on your team that are at home right now. What courses or what training could you offer to them, or a book could you give to them that would help them develop skills? A lot of times you hear from people who say, if I had time, I'd teach my best team members how to be better salespeople or how to be better leaders. This is the perfect time for you to have them learn those kinds of training programs or go through that to become better too. Same thing with marketing and other things like that too. Just putting together like your strategy of what you want to do going forward and improving those skills and talents so you can become the best you can be. I think that's so important, just to have the intention to work and then just increase your efforts in those specific areas is really, really important advice. So as far as how you can reach me, you can email me at James Carl Butler, Carl's with a K, Karl, Butler @gmail.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at James Carl Butler as well, and I'm happy to respond to requests you have. If you'd like to have help in any way, I'm happy to do that. And then, of course, my new book coming out, Clear and Present Game Changers. I invite you to go online to Amazon and get that. It's been working a long time on putting that together, but it's just really the best things I've learned about how to turn around or transform any business, regardless of the situation we're in. And I do talk about the crisis in chapter 13, as Lee's been talking about here as well. So I really appreciate the chance to come in and just share my thoughts, my feelings with you. I wish you the best as you go through this traumatic time. We're all going through it together. We'll get through it. As Lee said, this will pass, and then we'll have a great opportunity to go forward. And I think that that's really important to be thinking about that going forward for the future.
Well, thank you so much. And you can reach me at milteer.com, and that's Milteer. And my contact information is on my website. And I'd like to leave everyone with this thought that your point of power in this lifetime is this very moment. It's not in the future. It is right now. It is how you use your 5 types of energy: mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. And I have a gift for you. And the gift is 5 short videos that I've done about the 5 types of energy. Again, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial. They're about 5 minutes each. And if you go to 5typesofenergy.com, 5 spelled out, 5typesofenergy.com, and signed up, these videos will come to you, and they are my gift to you. So folks, I think what James and I are both trying to say is life will continue, and that there are many opportunities out there that will present themselves, but you have to be in the state of mind, calm and open-minded, to be able to actually monetize and leverage new ideas, and to make sure that you are always, I call it, looking into the future, thinking about all the wonderful things you can do and that you will do. That having a plan, like Jim says, is very, very important. Trying to deal with life without a plan, that means that you're you're being a reactor to life versus an actor. So we've had a good time here. I'm going to send you this video. I want you to send it to your list. I'm going to put it on social media. You put it on social media, and hopefully our goal is to help a lot of people. Thank you, everybody. It's been wonderful.
Thank you
Hope
so
to see you
much.
soon. Thank you.